The demographic transition model shows your birth rates, your death rates, and the population of a country or an area, or in the case of stage 1, an indigenous tribe, and it sort of explains some of the reasons for it. So it explains the population structure of that country or that area. So stage 1 is high fluctuating. So you'll notice you have two very high lines here and a very low population. So we're just going to label the different lines on our demographic transition model. So this top one is your birth rate. This black line is your death rate. And this red line is your overall population. On the left hand side, it is the birth and death rates per thousand per year. Remember, if you are in an exam and they ask you for a birth or a death rate, it is per thousand. Make sure you are referencing that for rate. Same for infant mortality. So in stage 1, it is high and fluctuating. So birth rate and death rate are high and fluctuating. And your population growth is 0. It is very low. It is very steady. Some examples of places that would be in stage 1 are sort of your indigenous tribes. So indigenous tribes. Your birth rate's really high because of a few reasons. So your birth rate is high, potentially due to having access to no contraception, which also goes for stage 2. Also, they may use their children for working agriculturally for them, and there also may be a high infant mortality rate. So there is a high infant mortality rate, which means that those people in those indigenous tribes may have more than 1 or 2 children, because there is only a small percent of chance of those children living. Your death rate is going to be high due to poor healthcare, due to things like famine, catching diseases. That is why it might be high in stage 1. Okay, stage 2 are your LICs. So a stage 2 country might be something like Afghanistan, or for example Gambia, which has a HDI score of 0.4. Your birth rate is still high, so birth rate is high due to lack of access of contraception. Your infant mortality rate might still be high, which means that people are choosing to have more children. The economy is based on agriculture, so they are having those lots of children to work on the farms with them. However, you will notice your death rate is decreasing, and your death rate is decreasing as they are getting better access to healthcare. It's not perfect like in a HIC, like in the UK, but they are having access to certain types of healthcare, for example with malaria or HIV, or having access to water. So your death rate is decreasing due to healthcare improving. Okay, we get to stage 3. Move that a second. We get to stage 3 and you will notice your population is actually now rising. So your population growth is quite high. So high population growth. And you will notice your death rate here is slowly falling. So slow falling. Whereas your birth rate is rapidly falling. So your birth rate is, your birth rate is rapidly falling. And some of the reasons for that is due to the fact that women are now getting access to contraception. The economy is more manufacturing, it's not farming, so we're not needing those children to work on those farms. So your birth rate is falling rapidly due to manufacturing industry. And access to contraception. Okay, an example of a country in this stage, you could talk about your BRICS. So you are thinking about your NEEs, so Brazil, Russia, India, China. So we can put India, not necessarily China, I'd say probably China in 4 if we're thinking about BRICS, but I'm thinking about Kenya, I'm thinking about Nigeria as well. Okay, you will notice now here, we are into stage 4, which is your HICs. Your death rate is low due to good healthcare. More people have access to it. So your death rate is low due to good healthcare. More people have access to it. But your standard of living is also high in terms of your birth rate. So your birth rates are low because people expect a high standard of living, and many have dependent elderly relatives, so there's less money available for having children. Also, women are more focusing on their careers, things like that. That's going to be more in stage 5 as well. But people are putting off having children, etc., things like that. So your death rate is low due to good healthcare, and your birth rate is quite low due to careers. Okay, then we get into stage 5, which you still have your HICs, but you have this area here, which is called natural decrease. And natural decrease is the opposite to natural increase. So it is when your death rate, so death rate is higher than your birth. And some countries that we might find here are like Japan and Germany. We are moving into stage 5 as well. The UK, it is negative. Your population is sort of decreasing here, as you can tell. It's starting to decrease. And the reasons for that is healthcare is really, really good. But also, women are focusing on careers, and there are more older people. And we call that, remember, an aging population. When there are more older people than there are younger. Women are focusing on careers, so your birth rate is really low due to careers. And your death rate sort of remains the same. So we're having less children being born in stage 5 countries, but we're having more people dying, so your population is falling. You need to be able to understand why certain countries are in certain stages. We need to make sure we understand what's happening and can describe the graph in terms of what's happening to the population in terms of your birth rate and your death rate, but also the population. Understanding that natural increase and natural decrease play a part, and the reasons why. So thinking about what's it like in an NEE, what's it like in a HIC, what's it like in an LIC. That might mean my birth rate is ridiculously high in an LIC, or lack of access to contraception, high infant mortality rate, so people are having multiple children. They work in agriculture, which means that they have lots of children to work with them on the farms. Whereas here we're getting to more manufacturing and tertiary, so your secondary and tertiary type jobs. And women are more able to get an education. They're putting off having families that early.